The London Missionary Society was a non-denominational missionary society formed in England in 1795 by evangelical Anglicans and Nonconformists, largely Congregationalist in outlook, with missions in the islands of the South Pacific and Africa. It now forms part of the Council for World Mission. Origins: as early as 1793, Edward Williams, then minister at Cars Lane, Birmingham, had written a letter to the churches of the Midlands, expressing the need for world evangelization and foreign missions. It was an effective letter. Williams began to play an active part in the plans for a missionary society. Williams left Birmingham in 1795, becoming pastor at Masborough, Rotherham, and tutor of the newly formed Masborough Academy. He continued his involvement with the society and, in July 1796, it was he who gave the charge to the first missionaries sent out by the society. Proposals for the Missionary Society began in 1794 after a Baptist minister, John Ryland, received word from William Carey, the pioneer British Baptist missionary who had recently moved to Calcutta, about the need to spread Christianity. Carey suggested that Ryland join forces with others along the non-denominational lines of the Anti-Slavery Society to design a society that could prevail against the difficulties that evangelicals often faced when spreading the word. This aimed to overcome the difficulties that establishment of overseas missions had faced. It had frequently proved hard to raise the finance because evangelicals belonged to many denominations and churches. All too often their missions would only reach a small group of people and be hard to sustain. The society aimed to be more successful by creating a forum where evangelicals could work together, giving overseas missions more lines of financial support and better coordination, including firm support against their fierce opponents who wanted unrestricted commercial and military relations with native peoples throughout the world. The aim was to enable longer-term and more successful missions to be established. After Ryland showed Carey a Euro unregistered trademark's letter to H. O. Wills, an anti-slavery campaigner in Bristol, he quickly gained support. Scottish ministers in the London area, David Bogue and James Stephen, as well as other evangelicals such as John Hay, joined forces to organise a new society. Bogue wrote an appeal in the Evangelical magazine. "You were once pagans, living in cruel and abominable idolatry. The servants of Jesus came from other lands, and preached his gospel among you. Hence your knowledge of salvation. And ought ye not, as an equitable compensation for their kindness, to send messengers to the nations which are in like condition with yourselves of old, to entreat them that they turn from their dumb idol to the living God, and to wait for his Son from heaven? Verily their debtors ye are." Its editor, Reverend John Eyre of Hackney, responded by inviting a leading and influential evangelical, Reverend Thomas Howery, to write a response to Bogue's appeal. The Cornishman sided firmly with Bogue, and immediately identified two donors, one of £500, and one of £100. From this start, a campaign developed to raise money for the proposed society, and its first meeting was organised at Baker a Euro unregistered trademark's coffeehouse on Change Alley in the City of London. 18 supporters showed up and helped agree the aims of the proposed missionary society a Euro to spread the knowledge of Christ among heathen and other unenlightened nations. By Christmas over 30 men were committed to forming the society. In the following year, 1795, Sparfield's Chapel was approached for permission to preach a sermon to the various ministers and others by now keenly associated with the plan to send missionaries abroad. This was organised for Tuesday 22 September 1795, the host chapel insisting that no collection for the proposed society must be made during the founding event, which would be more solemn, and formally mark the origin of the missionary society. Hundreds of evangelicals attended, and the newly launched society quickly began receiving letters of financial support and interest from prospective missionaries. Early days, Joseph Hardcastle of Hatcham House, Deptford became the first treasurer, and the Reverend John Eyre of Hackney became the first secretary to the Missionary Society, the latter appointment providing it with an effective newspaper to promote its cause. The Missionary Society's board quickly began interviewing prospective candidates. In 1800 the society placed missionaries with the Reverend David Bogue of Gosport for preparation for their ministries. a Captain Wilson offered to sail the missionaries to their destination and paid. The society was able to afford a boat for the captain to sail, the Duff. It could carry 18 crew members and 30 missionaries. 7 months after the crew left port from the Woolwich docks in late 1796 they arrived in Tahiti, where 17 missionaries departed. The missionaries were then instructed to become friendly with the natives, build a mission house for sleeping and worship, and learn the native language. The missionaries faced unforeseen problems. The natives had firearms and were anxious to gain possessions from the crew. The Tahitians also had faced difficulties with diseases spread from the crews of ships that had previously docked there. The natives saw this as retribution from the gods, and they were very suspicious of the crew. Of the 17 missionaries that arrived in Tahiti, 8 soon left on the first British ship to arrive in Tahiti. When the Duff returned to Britain it was immediately sent back to Tahiti with 30 more missionaries. Unfortunately this journey was disastrous. Captured by French privateers, the Duff was sold by its captors. The expense of the journey cost the Missionary Society £10,000, which was initially devastating to the society. Gradually it recovered, however, and in 1807 was able to establish a mission in Guangzhou, China under Robert Morrison. Another missionary who served in China was John Kenneth Mackenzie. A native of Yarmouth in England, he served in Hankou and Tientsin. Starting in 1815, they hired Abdullah bin Abdul Qadir as a translator, to work on many texts including the Gospels. In September 1816 Robert Moffett was commissioned in the Surrey Chapel, on the same day as John Williams. Moffett served in South Africa until 1870, accompanied by his wife Mary from circa 1819. In 1817 Edward Stalybras was sent out to Russia to start a mission among the Buryat people of Siberia. The mission received the blessing of Alexander I of Russia, but was suppressed in 1840 under his successor Nicholas I. Alongside Stalybras worked Cornelius Rahmn of Sweden, William Swan and Robert Ewell of Scotland. Later work and notable missionaries. In 1818, the society was renamed the London Missionary Society. In 1822, John Philip was appointed superintendent of the London Missionary Society stations in South Africa where he fought for the rights of the indigenous people. 1830 John Williams sighted the coast of Savaii in Samoa and landed on August 24, 1830 at Sapapalai village in search of Malitoa via Inupo, a paramount chief of Samoa. John Williams was greeted by his brother Te Melilorgi. Upon meeting Malitoa at a large gathering in Sapapalai, the LMS mission was accepted and grew rapidly throughout the Samoan Islands. The Kingdom of Maine also became a LMS Island Kingdom. 1832 John Williams landed at Leone Bay in what was later to become American Samoa. He was informed that men of their village have accepted the lot brought by Anaio and Viliamu in Savaii. Not knowing John Williams now stood before them. A monument stands before the large beautiful Sinner Chapel now CCCAS in Leone, American Samoa. In honor of John Williams, the Apostle of the Pacific. In 1839, John Williams's missionary work whilst visiting the New Hebrides came to an abrupt end, when he was killed and eaten by cannibals on the island of Erromango whilst he was attempting to convey to them the blessings he brought. He was traveling at the time in the missionary ship Camden commanded by Captain Robert Clark Morgan. A memorial stone was erected on the island of Rarotonga in 1839 and is still there today. His widow is buried with their son, Samuel Tamatoa Williams, at the Old Cedar Circle in London's Abney Park Cemetery, the name of her husband and the sad record of his death described first on the modest stone. John Williams' remains were sought by a group from Samoa and his bones were brought back to Samoa, where throngs of the LMS mission attended a funeral service attended by Samoan royalty, high-ranking chiefs and the LMS missionaries. His remains were interred at the native LMS church in Apia. A monument stands in his memory across from the Congregational Christian Church of Apia Chapel. Reverend Dr. Alexander MacDonald and his wife Selina Dorcas arrived in Rarotonga in May 1836, then Samoa in April 1837 and settled at Safune on the central north coast of Savaii Island in Samoa in August 1837. He left the LMS in 1850 when he accepted a position with the Congregational Church in Auckland, New Zealand, 1839–1879. Reverend George Pratt served as a missionary in Samoa for many years, at the station at Matotu on Savairi Island. Pratt was a linguist and authored the first grammar and dictionary on the Samoan language, first published in 1862 at the Samoa Mission Press. In 1840, the medical missionary and explorer David Livingstone departed for South Africa, arriving in 1841, and serving with the LMS until 1857. Moffett and Livingstone met circa 1841. In 1845, Livingstone married Robert and Mary Moffett's daughter Mary. 1844 London Missionary Society established Malua Theological College at the village of Malua on Upper Lu to educate local men to become village clergy for the rapidly growing mission with over 250 villages and 25,000 membership. 1844 London Missionary Society sent Samoan missionaries to surrounding islands. Rotuma, Niue, Tokile, Ellice Islands, Papua, Vanuatu. Over 300 served in Papua alone. Despite such difficulties, the society prevailed and would soon send missionaries all over the world, notably to India, China, Australia, Madagascar and Africa. Famous LMS missionaries included, Robert Morrison who went to China in 1807, John Abbs who went to Travancore, India in 1837, James Legge, sinologist, David Livingstone who went to South Africa in 1840, Ernest Cromwell Peake who brought Western medicine to Hangzhou, China. The LMS missionaries had a huge influence on the spread of their largely non-denominational approach to Christianity, throughout the world. Merger: the London Missionary Society merged with the Commonwealth Missionary Society in 1966 to form the Congregational Council for World Mission. At the formation of the United Reformed Church in 1972 it underwent another name change, becoming the Council for World Mission. The CWM was again restructured in 1977 to create a more internationalist and global body, the Council for World Mission. The records of the London Missionary Society are held at the Library of the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. The 1924 Olympic gold medalist Eric Liddell served as an LMS missionary to China. See also, List of London Missionary Society missionaries in China, Protestant missionary societies in China during the 19th century, School of Oriental and African Studies in London, the historical background to church activities in Zambia, John Smith, John Abbs, Demerara Rebellion of 1823, List of ships named John Williams, 7 LMS missionary ships, SS Nguyen, a missionary ship. Publications: Reverend C. W. Abel, Savage Life in New Guinea, Reverend George Pratt, A Grammar and Dictionary of the Samoan Language. References. Bibliography: Ellis, William, History of the London Missionary Society, London, John Snow Volume 1, Lovett, Richard, History of the London Missionary Society 1795–1895, London, Henry Froud Volume 1, Volume 2, Goodall, Norman, History of the London Missionary Society 1895–1945, London, OUP, Heine, Thomas, On the Missionary Trail, New York, Atlantic Monthly Press, Chamberlain, David, Smith of Demerara, London, Simpkin, Marshall & Co., Northcote, Cecil, Glorious Company. 150 Years Life and Work of the London Missionary Society 1795–1945, London, Livingston Press, The Evangelical Magazine and Missionary Chronicle, Sparfields Chapel Minutes, British History Online, http://www.british-history.ac.uk/ report.asp?? compid = 38774. External links: The Council for World Mission, Pilot's website. Youth organization originally established to support the LMS, works by London Missionary Society at Project Gutenberg, works by or about London Missionary Society at Internet Archive.